Hi everyone, I wanted to give everybody an update. I recently had to go to the emergency room because I couldn't breathe, like literally. I could not take in a breath or could barely take in a breath. It felt like an elephant was standing on my chest. Um, and it also caused severe dizziness. I felt cold and tingling, like literally from head to toe. I had issues with tactile functioning. I could barely walk, kept feeling like I was going to pass out. Felt like I was getting stabbed in the right shoulder. There was some chest pain, but it certainly wasn't like a heart attack. It wasn't cardiac arrest chest pain because the EMTs asked me if I took a nitroglycerin. Um, I couldn't. I was sitting here in Hannaford Pharmacy resting because I walked up here and thought I was going to pass out, and I didn't think I was going to be able to make it back to camp. If you notice my eye drooping, that's because I have deliberately accelerated uterine cancer that has rapidly metastasized throughout the lymph nodes. It's in both sinuses, both lungs, both kidneys, all across the reproductive organs, and it causes sepsis, internal hemorrhaging, and then those infections. You can get UTIs, dental infections, sinus infections, etc. I'm alive. I've been stage 4 since March of 2016. I'm alive because of whistleblower medical students that are blowing the whistle. They're tired of an entire corrupt administration. It doesn't matter whether they're red or blue. Um, they're being charged a fortune to go to university only to be forced to harm patients and get involved in racketeering with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's allies and partners in crime, basically, in both parties. Epstein was a billionaire motherfucker, didn't have a job. He didn't make his billions off trafficking minors. He trafficked minors to government officials to then blackmail them to get out of um, charges from hedge fund schemes and Ponzi schemes with BlackRock, Vanguard, and all of their companies that they own. The healthcare corporations, that's why when he took his child victims to doctors, he knew those doctors were going to do exactly what the University of Vermont doctors did to me. Tried to dope me and call me crazy. Only they know the sheriff's department's hip to that game, so I literally recorded the doctors coming in trying to tell me I had COVID. They never did a COVID test. They never did a CT scan. They didn't do any chest x-ray. Lied about the blood work and said, well, your D-dimer's fine, so we don't need to do any other tests. Knowing, now here's the thing, I recorded myself telling them I'm stage 4 cancer from deliberately accelerated uterine cancer that is stage 4, and their own doctors and their administrators are falsifying medical records. I am a murder victim, a whistleblower investigator tied to the Epstein case, and that Lieutenant Horton, or a lieutenant at the sheriff's department, is handling my murder investigation, and all of them are under investigation. At that point, they should have got Lieutenant Horton or the on-call deputy there and reported the abuse by all of their, and had them gone over the records, asked me how they were falsified, done complete testing to show that I am terminally ill, that I'm a murder victim. No, they got recorded acting like they didn't hear a word I said, deflecting, and then doing what's called unbundling and upcoding. Oh, maybe you think you have COVID. I said, I don't think I have COVID. I said, COVID doesn't cause swollen lymph nodes. Oh, I think that's a lipoma. So as soon as he regurgitated those false diagnoses that are already in my medical records that the sheriff's department's investigating, you should have seen this little cocksucker. He literally dropped his head in defeat. He knew he was caught. Whoever sent him in there to lie to me didn't tell him how to lie. And then when I tell him to get the fuck out and I start yelling for the nurses to get security in there and who will call the sheriff's department or somebody, he's, what did I say? What did I do? He's trying to get inside of my head to figure out what all he was doing wrong that set me off and let me know I was hip to his game. And the smug look on his face that you guys will eventually see on the hidden camera video. See, all that's evidence from an ongoing criminal investigation. I can't upload the audio and video. That's now with the special prosecutors. That all those little cocksuckers, when you see these kids, nurses and doctors acting like frat boy sorority girls covering each other's asses for dumb shit they did, that is literally creating mass genocide. And what was really scary when I walked out after they wrongfully discharged me with a collapsed lung and pneumonia and probably internal hemorrhaging and God only knows what else, and I'm looking at little kids. The whole damn ER was packed. The whole fucking waiting room was standing room only. You know what? And this population's only 30,000. So when you have a packed ER day in and day out, you're making money hand over fist, and they're doing it deliberately. They're keeping people sick, so they keep coming back, and each ER visit's $5 to $10 grand. Then when you do all the, of course, me, they didn't do tests because it would have shown evidence that all the previous doctors had falsified their records. Let's put it this way. I went in there with severe chest pain. They knew I had a prescription for nitroglycerin. Ergo, they knew I had a history of cardiac arrest. Not one single doctor or nurse in that ER listened to my heart or lungs. They didn't even put their fucking hands on me. They did no physical examination whatsoever. When I mentioned the swollen lymph node on the back, I think that's a lipoma. How the fuck can you make a diagnosis? And see, that's what this doctor got recorded. Oh, well, we really got to do other tests. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. You knew you were supposed to do that before you ever called it a lipoma. And ain't no lipoma the size of a fucking softball. That swollen lymph node is so big I look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And it's full of uterine cancer. Guess what that means? It's way past stage 4. They stage it based on how far away it has metastasized from the original source. If the original source is the uterus and it's already in my sinuses and multiple cancer lesions in both lungs, I've invented new stages of cancer, I guess. Do you really think I've invented new stages of cancer? No. They're lying about everything. And you're watching it in real time going on in Ohio. Now, we know that big plume that went up, toxic plume, you think it stayed just over the Ohio state line when that whole thing was right on the Ohio-Pennsylvania state line? You think that storm that just came through and is dumping acid snow on Vermont didn't bring that fallout over here? Guess what that means? That means DeWine. I want the DeWalt tool system with the new... I want a bunch of DeWalt tools, so I keep calling that little sawed-off prick DeWalt. You think DeWine didn't know that he should have picked up the phone and let the other governors of New York, like Governor Hochul, our governor Phil Scott, the governor of Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Maine, the entire eastern seaboard, all the way over to the Midwest, all of those governors should have had the option of whether or not to get FEMA involved. FEMA doesn't have to get involved just because people need rehousing or whatever. When you go to the FEMA website or just Google FEMA chemical incident, it says right there, they have to come in and do a criminal investigation, and they have to do long-term studies as to how it's going to impact and do preventative maintenance. That's their own website. So when Mayor Butthole and Pedo Pete get up there and say, oh, you don't qualify for FEMA assistance, they're blatantly lying to you. So what you're seeing is in real time is how both Republicans and Democrats, at the end of the day, when it comes to covering the asses of the corporations that fuck us and enslave us, it's a bipartisan issue. As we saw that with the Epstein thing. The Republicans didn't blow the whistle on Slick Willie being on that plane 27 times. They didn't tell us about Slick Willie, Bill Gates, or anything else. The only reason why they're yelling about it now is to distance themselves, to make it look like they weren't covering it up. We learned about that whole Epstein mess from Miami Herald. So, those of you thinking we have two different political parties representing two separate demographics, you're not paying attention. I mean, the evidence is right in front of you. If you would quit hating other people,